YUNKJunk! Listen, you jerk, Ben Affleck is a much better actor than anyone gives him credit for, and you'll find out when we're talking about Air.
Listen, you jerk. This is the best Michael Jordan basketball movie that has nothing to do with basketball or Michael Jordan.
Welcome back to Listen, You Jerk, where Ozzy and I talk all about little itty-bitty things that are part of movies that we believe are underappreciated. Now, I have always been a fan of Ben Affleck since The Town came out and totally recreated his character in the eyes of Hollywood. He's great in Good Will Hunting, and he's great in Kevin Smith movies, but he does come across in all those as kind of like a jokey character. When he gets behind the lens in Gone Baby Gone and creates a masterpiece film, and then gets in front of that same lens that he's directing in The Town, we saw a whole new caliber of actor where we all started to think, oh, maybe he did help Matt Damon write that script, right? Air is a movie directed by him, I think written by the both of them, potentially.
Yeah,
it's adapted, so somebody wrote the book first. But in this movie, Affleck plays the shoe knight himself, Phil Knight, who is started Nike. Interesting choice of this movie, though. It is not about the rise of the shoe knight. He's already there, which I thought was interesting, especially when he's playing that role. But I guess he would be playing the main character in the movie if they went that route with this. Instead, this is the story of the executive who lands Michael Jordan when it's his last chance.
Sonny Vaccaro.
And I loved this movie. It was so wonderful to enjoy. The undersung parts of it that I'm going to talk about today are Ben Affleck's acting performance, as well as some cinematography things. I'm going to be very specific on those in explaining why I thought like both of those combined were amazing and show the amazing person that is Ben Affleck. What are going to be your opinions?
My thoughts are probably similarly to your cinematography angle there. I think Ben Affleck's period piecing in terms of this movie was incredible. And hitting that time period, those late 80s, early 90s, I think it felt very authentic. So I'll be talking about that, obviously. And then also, I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. I know most things about him. The thing that I loved about this movie was that it told a story and it did not rely on, Michael Jordan's likeness. It didn't rely on, using clips from him playing.
It back of his head.
Yeah, it literally we see him 3 times back of his head. It's about his mom. It's about the executives in Nike. It's about the story was not about Michael Jordan, and they could have easily copped out and leaned on how much people love him, and they didn't even barely included him in the movie.
Yeah, and I thought that was great. And the Michael Jordan that is there is North Carolina Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Something that I love that's happened since The Last Dance really came out, and technically Charles Barkley, I think, started this trend a couple years earlier, is Michael Jordan was a dick, and now the whole world knows.
Yeah.
And it's fun because it's like, all right, good, we're being realistic about this. So Barkley, in an interview years ago, somebody had a messed up altercation or something with Michael Jordan. And I remember Barkley reacting to it, and he's just like, well, most people don't know that Michael Jordan is the most competitive man there's ever been. Like, right. If you think he's the clean cut, I want to be like Michael Jordan, like, he's not.
Right.
And there's hints of that in here, in that one of the big hints is to get someone to sign on, to do a shoe deal with you, who's a basketball player, you have to give them a bunch of shit.
Right.
Cars, money, women, etc. And this is to a college student, which is illegal. You're not allowed to do this. And I like that they do it anyway. And they show Jordan's like, I'm not doing shit unless someone gives me a car. Adidas would have given him a car because Adidas was the team to beat at the time, right?
Right.
So yes, I'm going to agree, and I'm going to say Affleck masterfully directs this movie in period piecing and in how he represents everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You said period piecing earlier. What do you mean by that? I assume something similar.
Just the setting. Like the costume design, like just the way people acted, the way people talked, like just all it felt so that era.
Yeah.
And it also, on top of all that, just the physical optics of it. On top of that, it also encapsulated just kind of like that feeling of when Michael was coming into the league. He didn't have that much hype. So it was, in that boardroom where they're all, posting down like, yeah, I mean, Michael Jordan's going to be a top 2, top 3 pick, whatever it is. But it was, I think it was, I want to say Stoudemire. Someone's going to fact check me. It's probably wrong. But whoever that first person was in that board, that was the guy. That was the big draft pick. That was the one everyone wanted. And Michael wasn't even number 1 on that. And I think a lot of people overlook that point, and people forget that, Michael got cut from high school, had to scrap through college. Like, people didn't even notice him until that championship game type deal, where I think that just the vibe of what was going on in that time frame about Michael Jordan and about basketball, I think was also spot on.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna go further on that period piece thing, because everyone looks like they're from that era too. And what I mean
Brad Pitt's
is
chubby and wearing a braided
exactly
belt.
what I'm talking about is they're not like, Damon played Jason Bourne and got ripped to shreds to do it. Affleck was Batman in a Zack Snyder movie, where you have to physically look the part. Both of these guys have been jacked. Affleck is skinny and wearing a dumbass wig, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And Damon put on weight for this role. He's a chubby dude. It was like, I'm in my car eating fast food,
pleated khakis. Yeah. What are you doing?
And then Bateman's super skinny as well.
Yeah.
Like, his clothes are too big for him.
Yeah, his hair, too much hair going on.
Like that,
Yeah.
Jordan's mom.
Yep.
That's a very, very 90s look, because a lot of moms in the 90s look like moms from the 60s too.
Exactly.
Things didn't change. So amazing directing there.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the scene at the end, which is the boardroom scene, because this is the specific element that stuck out to me that I wanted to talk about on this show, which is, in this scene, it is business people. Well, let's back up. The actors are Matt Damon, Jason Bateman, Ben Affleck, and the dude that was on New Girl, who played the cop, or the dude he was either on New Girl, he was on some where he played Mindy Kaling's show. What was that back in the day? The Mindy Project on Fox.
Never saw that one.
Anyway, the agent is that guy.
Okay.
So
he was great too.
Yeah, those are our 4 kind of players that are in this scene, along with a stand-in for Michael Jordan and the mom and dad.
Right.
And Chris Tucker.
Yes, Chris Tucker. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to set this scene of, first of all, Chris Tucker's late, and there's a pretty funny scene between Jordan's dad and him because he's late. But for me, that whole scene there's that beautiful scene, but there's the scene right before it that informs why this is so cool. Okay, so everybody I just named is a great actor. Oh my God, who played Jordan's mom?
Viola Davis.
Viola Davis, another incredible actor. What happens before that is they're coming up with the pitch of this is their last and only chance to make this happen and essentially save the company, or at least save the department. The company's doing fine.
Yeah.
And what they do is they come up with a plan of attack, and they do it as if they are planning a little theater production. Everyone has lines and a role to play, and they all get excited about it, but at the same time scared. Affleck's doing this thing where he doesn't want to do it and doesn't have buy-in, and then it's like, no, wait, you're right, I should come in.
Yeah, he shows up 7 minutes late,
right,
to show that you're a very busy man, but this matters to you.
So exactly, and it's like that. It's very childish. These are business executives acting for the first time.
Right.
And they then go into the scene. Everyone is overacting their part. And it's the best thing ever, but especially Affleck. Affleck walks in and he goes, I'm sorry, I was late to a thing, but I had to be here right now. He even does this thing with his hand.
Because this matters.
Because this matters to me. And he does these little poses and whatnot.
It's like a bad game of Survivor. There's a bad episode when they're all sitting around. They're oh, we got to trick this person.
They're acting. And this is the great conceit of this movie to me is everyone in that room is a top level actor.
Yeah.
Top level. So what they have to do is act like business people who are acting for the first time.
Right.
Which is that mind fuck of a thing.
Yes.
You know, we talked about Pattinson had to do something similar in the Batman. I think I even referenced this movie. But Affleck does this thing where he's acting like someone who's never acted before. That's not a knock on his acting. That's a lot of mental gymnastics to do the performance.
It's layered.
And he takes it all the way through, and you see where it gets interesting, and he pops out of his actor performance and back into his business person performance when Damon delivers his speech. You know, when Matt Damon actually does some real acting in there, trying to convince Michael Jordan to sign with them, explaining everything of like how and having the honest thing. It'll cut to Affleck every once in a while that he'll say a thing that maybe he's not okay with. For example, we'll just pay the fine. Yeah, exactly. That's it, exactly. There's a lot of like,
what? we'll do what?
Which is very interesting because like then he's pulling out of his persona, playing the business person again, and then having to come back into the persona at times. And then after it, you know, they seal the deal and, you know, Damon says, you know, this is why you came in late. And he's like, we'll pay the fine. It'll be fine. You know, we'll pay the fine. But there's a part there where he's referencing Damon's speech. And in Damon's speech, he says, nobody at this table will ever do anything important, but you will.
Yeah.
People will remember you.
Yeah.
And after Affleck's performance, that's it. Yeah. Affleck's performance right after that is my favorite thing I've seen in a movie in like 10 years, where he's like, nobody's done anything. Well, I like to think that I've done something. I've done something. He literally did. You know, this is Phil Knight. This is the shoe knight. You know, the shoe dog. Is it shoe dog or shoe knight?
Shoe Knight.
Are you sure? I think it's shoe dog.
I
Folks at home, is it shoe dog or is it shoe knight? Comment for shoe dog and like for shoe knight.
Hit the like button.
But that is a tremendous acting performance that if you're like Ben Affleck can't act, not only can he act, but he can act so well that he can make you believe that he can't act. If that makes sense. I mean, that's what he does in that moment, but it's so charming and childish. It's like watching a couple of middle schoolers come up with this plan, put it all up on the line, and then the one guy realized, like, wait, I'm not a dick. You know, I'm great at this. Like, I'm important. I've done something. It's one of my favorite performances. So again, just Affleck, you know, doing the Lord's work out there, to borrow a line from Kevin Smith. He's just like, you forget how good he is at just acting until he's in roles. And he directed himself doing that.
Right.
Not to mention, like, as a director, giving yourself that wig, putting yourself in windbreakers the whole time, forcing yourself to run outside when it sucks and, like, be sweaty and gross. It's just, Affleck fucking rules, and I wish more people thought he did. Because this movie, and I think all movies he's directed and either has appeared in or not appeared in are fantastic films.
I agree. And on to piggyback that.
Yeah, please.
I also you can tell that Affleck is and Damon to an extent, but Affleck, because he you know, they did this together. But you can tell that they're basketball fans. Like little Easter eggs throughout the movie, like the scene where Ben Affleck has his feet up with his shoes off. That's an iconic shoe night picture. Like, absolutely iconic. And just to have that just to cut to a scene and have his feet up and pan out and then basically recreate that picture and then go into a scene. It's like, there was no reason for that other than just like, you know, he's tickling the ivories of the basketball fans out. The people that were either alive for it or the people that care enough to go back on it or anything. Like, just the fandom in this elevated it for me as well, because you could tell that was a part of his directing style throughout the entire movie. Yeah. It's just random, you know, like the commercial with, I can't remember the tennis player's name, but they did the racket commercial, and that's what had Sonny like realize, like, this guy's a competitor, like, this is the guy we want, talking about Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. It's like, nobody remembers that commercial unless you were alive back then. Mm-hmm. No one remembers that commercial unless you've studied, you know, Michael Jordan's rise and, you know, up and coming and all that. And I thought those little Easter eggs that a lot of people wouldn't even get add on to his ability to be like, hey, like, you know, I'll put myself in it, I'll write a good story, but I'm also going to infuse like the things that I love. And he clearly loves basketball. So that was another elevating aspect in his performance, his work.
Yeah, it certainly was. He also does something that's very difficult to do and make look realistic, which is he has a very realistic back and forth with Damon of, like having to be the CEO of a company. I have this. I did this today, where you have to have a heated discussion and you have to, lay down the law and stuff. And, even though it's like you don't want feelings hurt or anything like that, you're like, you're not the only part of this company. I have a lot of things to worry about, and you're going to end up getting shit canned if you won't listen to me on this. Right. And the other guy fighting back, but doing it in the right way. I think there's a part where he goes looking for him in his office and he's not there. Right. Oh, well, not him. Bateman does it.
Right.
But that is such a hard thing to do realistically, to show realistic corporate world conversations where both people are right, but you as the owner of the company or the president are handcuffed to, I have a board that I, have to, what's the word I'm looking for?
Appease.
Yes, I have a board I have to appease. It is not just about us. We are not just a couple of kids in a room doing this.
Exactly.
Which is so great because that is perfectly shown against what they do later, where it is like we're just a bunch of kids in a room again. Right. So
that is what they are. And then it's Phil dealing with a board of directors and being like, this is how I want to run this. This is how I've always run this. But like, can we please not fuck this up? Like, can we please just, not act like a bunch of kids in a room? But that's what they were.
Doesn't he go like, do you want to lose your fucking job or something like that?
Yeah.
But it's very serious. It's like, I hear you. I hear you want to do this great thing. But right now I'm getting pressure to shut this thing down because it makes no money.
Right.
And doing that where it's passionate and it's real is just so amazing to see. Because, anyone who's ever worked and like really wanted to do something and your boss doesn't want to let you do it, or role reverse, but you're a dreamer or whatever, has had those conversations. And that to me is the beauty of this movie. You would never in a million years think the executives behind the Michael Jordan shoe deal would be interesting.
Right.
And they make it that way because it's so realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the other than the performances, which we'll get back to, but I kind of want to stick to the undersung parts of the film. The cinematography in this movie is wild because all they have is a 90s shitty looking business place.
Yeah, an office space.
It's a classic ugly office.
Right.
And what they do is the way they cut it together, I've actually had my guys study a little bit because there's drone shots that are flat, like straight up and down. So it's a flat drone shot that comes from the parking lot to the building, and it feels kind of ominous at times, or like this is trouble. But it also feels, and they had to do this, abandoned, because a lot of this movie takes place on a Saturday.
Right.
Like they, which I love, because 3 employees being like, yeah, we'll be there on a Saturday. Yeah, because they have to, or everyone's getting fired.
Right.
The whole department is at stake. And it's like ominous the way it comes in, but still kind of sleek and cool. Mm-hmm. So just that top-down, dolly forward, overhead drone shot coming forward. And then it edits perfectly to this moving shot from... It goes across the front of like a table in the office, and then starts to turn right slowly for like it's not motivated, and then Damon walks in, and it catches him. So it's like it looks like unmotivated camera movement that suddenly catches motivation at the end, and they do it a couple times to the point where I'm like, guys, watch how they shoot these rooms. Because the way Bateman comes into one and then walks out of the other one, the way the camera moves a little bit, but always for a reason. And then there's the lock-off shots that are amazing too. There's also a lot of there's some product shots because it's about the shoe. So I can't remember the actor's name, but he's wonderful. But he's playing the Phil Knight's former running coach who develops the shoe.
Oh yeah.
And there's the product shot where it comes up and they're all kind of doing the head over. Like they're all looking at something down here. Yeah. And I always love that shot because it's teamwork.
Right.
but before we meet this person, there's a close-up of Affleck looking out the window, kind of, and then we get a shot POV out the window, kind of down diagonally, and it's that dude, the designer whose name escapes me, doing kickflips, like skateboarding. It pairs perfectly with just that's at the end of that heated conversation. Then he looks out there and goes, "What is he doing?" And it's like, well, he just comes out and skates around, but you never see his face. We don't go down and see like cool angles. It's just very much this weird reaction shot. And he walks over to the window, and then the camera follows him to the window in a close-up. And then the next shot is just like looking down at him doing this kickflip. Right. And it just comes out of nowhere, and it's bizarre. And he comments on it as if like, oh, what is he doing? Doesn't he have a car? But he's like blowing off steam. Like, he's just a weirdo. So right. I always love weirdo shots. Weirdo introductions. I also love getting in trouble shots, which Bateman is great. Bateman playing a guy who's kind of anxious and kind of pissed off. Meanwhile, like, Damon's on the other side of the world, like eating a cheeseburger in a car.
And it cuts to him, and he's just like...
It cuts to him, but this movie is a masterclass in making a corporate setting, a stodgy corporate setting, look cool.
Right.
And top down. I love top down shots. They are so cool to me.
So my perception of that, and it might be where you're going with this, and it might be completely different, which makes it even better. The way I kind of saw those top downs, those weird angles, like especially that like kickflip scene where like looking out the window, to me that felt like almost, and I love this and not to call this a period piece, but anything like that's kind of dated backwards. Yeah. It gave me a sense of like we already know what happened, but we're looking through, down into the fishbowl, and we're seeing like, kind of like the Harry Potter, like pensive, like you put your head in the water and you see the memory and all that. And it felt like that a lot to me, where it was like those kind of, you called them unmotivated camera movements. Yeah. Those to me
just start going somewhere, and we're not sure why. Because traditionally a camera follows a person.
So to me, that felt like, imagine like, those classic 90s scenes where like you're in an old memory and you're not like Ghost of Christmas Past type thing. You're in a memory, but you're not there. So like you're kind of just like twirling around looking at everything and catching things and all that. And that's how that felt to me, was we were just kind of planted either above or into this old story, but from a perspective that we're not necessarily familiar with. And that cinematography kind of complemented that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Like, them working around a table, coming up with the plan for the corporate boardroom, and then just
for that you said the teamwork top down. Yeah. For me, that was like, oh shit, like I'm watching this happen right now. Like, oh shit, like they're figuring this out like as we speak.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then on the flip side, there's also like they make a little 90s commercial for Phil Knight's car. Almost when it comes into the parking lot, it's kind of very much like a 90s.
It stays low and it like zips in.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a 90s commercial, which is fun for me. But those are my two big things. Were there any other like undersung things? Because I want to go into the acting next, but I wouldn't call that undersung. I think everyone thinks the acting was amazing in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I can't I think it's undersung. Everyone's like, oh, it's Air, it's Michael Jordan, it's this. Like, like the LeBron fans will hate it, the Michael Jordan fans will love it. But it's really, the thing that people didn't grasp, and I didn't even grasp it right away. But the fact that they were able to create this movie about such a huge thing in the sports world and not even cast a Michael Jordan, like not even have his face show up, not even, rely on, him in the gym or just like random interactions, things happened in like Jordan interviews, like that type of thing. Like they didn't rely on that at all. They went and stayed in that stodgy, boardroom, in that stodgy office room, and they kept it in there. And they still drove a very engaging piece. And for me, as a huge Michael Jordan fan, I was sitting there and like halfway through the movie, I'm like, when am I going to see Michael? And I'm just like, I'm not. This is that interesting. I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the Jordan of it for a minute. This movie does one of my favorite things, which is Guy realizing all of his problems will be solved if he can do one thing. And like he has the awe-inspired look of, oh my God, that's the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
It's that slow. They're watching game footage.
Yeah, he
and he's
rewinds
just-
it like 6 times.
and he's just hitting the three, right?
Right.
Up at the top.
Yeah.
And 3-3, and he keeps rewinding it. It's like, like this shot is in Cinderella Man as well, when Russell Crowe is watching footage of the guy he's about to go up against, where it's like, oh, I figured out everything there is to know about this. You know, it's one of my favorite things that they do in sports movies, and it's here, but it's an executive
Right.
thinking, I can keep my job if I do this. He's on the chopping block. He knows he's on the chopping block.
He's been
Literally,
yeah.
The shoe dog says like, you know what I don't see you doing? Bringing us in any players. You know what your department's supposed to do? Bring us in players. Like, it's great. And it's great. But the Michael Jordan of it's nice because it's a feature.
Right.
It's not the main element.
Right.
We don't need to see him.
Right.
That is incredible craftsmanship to make us like this movie as much as we did without, our childhood hero, right?
And it also strengthens the idea that, a lot of people are like, oh, Michael Jordan's that competitor. He went out and got everything he wanted. But when he was in high school, when he was in college, his mom did run the show. Like, that's what it was. And I think that was another aspect where, like, he didn't talk to Michael. He talked to, he didn't even talk to his dad. He came up and the dad was working on the car and he's like, talk to the boss and head to the back. And then she comes out and brings it back. And it's like all the things that someone who didn't really know that would assume, like, oh, he had to go and like make all these deals with Michael. It's like, no, they were dealing with his mom.
Yep.
And like, when he asked, like, is he here? She was like, he's inside, but it's not the time for you to see him yet. I was like, that's like almost breaking, fourth wall. Like, that's almost her saying, like, not time for you guys to see him yet.
Thought of that.
Yeah, like, that's almost talking to us. That's how I took it. When she said that, I was like, fuck you, Viola.
Fuck you, Viola.
Right.
She's wonderful in the movie. The phone call at the end,
Yeah.
where this is kind of going into it of, there is some powerful acting in this movie.
Yeah.
Viola Davis and Matt Damon at the end saying, we got it. We're gonna do it, but
Here's
charity.
the deal. Yeah.
Here's the deal, and it's not the right deal. And he has to go and figure out what to do.
Right.
You know?
And it did end up being the right deal. Revolutionized the sports world. But I think that was another thing that I liked about like the nuance of the writing and all that was this deal was like literally revolutionized how sports entertainment works, how the sports media works, all that. Giving Michael a percentage of all Nike sales was an extremely risky move. But it was about finding Michael and getting him. But then when that was the only roadblock there, and then Sonny was just like, oh, I'm not going to get that. Screw it. And then Knight was like, fuck it, do it. We got to get him. And that was like that reduced.
And what you just did with your face, by the way, of like,
that's what he did. Yeah, he was like, that's exactly how he was just like, just do it. Just sign him.
Anybody in business has made that face.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But to reduce that monumental for the history of all professional basketball athletes, or all professional athletes for that matter, to reduce that decision down to Ben Affleck rolling his eyes and saying, fuck it. And that is how I'm certain that's how it went down. That's how Phil Knight was. But to reduce it down to that after this entire journey, that shows me too, it's about like just we got Sonny's journey, we got the journey to the deal, but then we also see behind the scenes Phil Knight's journey too, where at first he's just like, fuck this, screw this is all very stupid. Mm-hmm. But then, he slowly starts chipping away. He's like, I'm going to give you the budget. Then he's like, well, I'm going to do this for you. And then at the end, he's just like, fuck it, just give him the percentage. And then they were expecting $3 million and they get $162 million the first year or something ridiculous. So worked for everyone.
Well, I mean, the way this movie ends is fantastic. The way this movie ends is Affleck on the couch, over top shot, one of my favorite shots. He's like, how good can he be?
Yeah.
It's just one guy. Yeah. And then it's just like, then the words start coming up and you realize like, holy
we know exactly how good this guy was.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what's funny? So if you haven't read Shoe Dog or Shoe Knight, it remains to be seen. The book is amazing because it does go into this. It's not the book that this is based on. It's just, this is Phil Knight's journey. he approached Magic Johnson first with a deal kind of like this. Then, of course, one on the running shoe and off to the races. But Magic Johnson turned it down. He could have been the first, but instead stuck with Converse. And instead, Michael Jordan gets it after he's like sworn off, like, I'm not doing those kinds of deals. But ultimately, it's like, what do I do? There's nothing I can do.
Right.
Nothing. And it's revenue, kids, not profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Revenue. Yikes. Don't ever make that deal.
Off the top.
But this is just a masterclass. So let's kind of get into it. Let's you spend most of the movie, it's Damon's movie. You spend most of the movie with him, but the number 2 is Jason Bateman, who is amazing in this movie.
Yeah. He's
amazing in how he thinks about something. He's I know this guy. I work with this guy. Like, I know sports executives, and I know kind of their mannerisms and stuff. And this is just a guy who's divorced and wants to do right by his kid. And you'll get shades of personality. But for the most part, he's just trying to keep it together.
Right.
Damon's being an asshole. And he calls him and he's like, wow, you just trying to be an asshole?
Yeah.
And just the classic of, fuck, nothing is working, but I'm still just going to be kind of a cocky son of a bitch sometimes. But I like that he challenges people, he chases people down, and flips the fuck out when Damon breaks the law, essentially, breaks the rules of everything. And, you went to his house, that kind of thing.
Right.
Chasing him down, ready to take his head off. But then, who stays on the Saturday? Bateman does.
Yeah. He was dragged kicking and screaming along through most of this movie, and he played that aspect of it perfectly.
But when he commits...
Right. And when that scene where, and you touched on it with the trying to do right by his kid.
Yeah.
When he has that scene where it's her birthday and he talks about how I had she wouldn't let me have anything to do with her. And then I started bringing her Nikes every single birthday. And now she looks forward to her birthdays where I bring her a pair of shoes. And he's like, I'm pretty sure the only reason she cares about me is because of the shoes. And he goes on this tirade about it's anxious. It's all over the place.
But he's not weeping.
No, he's not. He's breaking it down. He's just like, you have risked that for me by doing it this way. He goes, that being said, he's like, I guess we're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's the way he was so all over the place, but then he was able to kind of hone in that scatterbrained anxiety and then be like, all right, screw it, we're doing it. And then montage, we're going to the shoe door. They're doing their little Rocky scene where they're going through their last day of training, whatever.
And they're not dressed up anymore. Like, no. Bateman's in a suit during the business hours, and then he's not in the on Saturdays and stuff. And it feels like a bunch of knuckleheads trying to figure this out. He has amazing dad energy in it. 90s dad energy. It is the 90s, right?
Yeah. Well, late 80s, early 90s.
Late 80s, early 90s. But he has that kind of thing of kind of like, I'm mad, I'm angry, I hate everything. Well, we still got to do this, so let's kind of move forward, and I'll do it with a smile on my face and show up on a Saturday.
Right.
I believe, who says, but it's Saturday? Is it Bateman?
I want to say it's
on the Fridays, like, we got to work overnight, and we got to be...
I want to say it's the shoe designer.
I don't remember who it is.
I'm not sure either.
I think it's Bateman because I think it's like, oh, he's not going to show up, and then he's the only one who does. He's going to bail him out. He's got to get it done. So Bateman, amazing performance. Really, really believable. And like I said, I've worked with that guy. That's what's so amazing about it. But next up is definitely Damon. Schlubby.
Yeah.
Sports fan.
Yeah.
Old school. 90s. Yeah. 80s.
That old
amazing. You know that guy. That's what's so amazing is
dribbles like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know him. You've seen him. He's your uncle. He's your he just was so realistic in his performance, which was just amazing. And a little funny, a little snarky, a little
confident, but also not confident. Outwardly confident, internally torn.
Yep. Kind of like, we're fucked, but
this is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like I'm fucked. I have no other options. Like,
Right.
I have to do this. It's just so believable as a man up against everything who is a gambler and is betting it all on this one thing. I forgot about the gambling. He loses money all the time.
Yeah, well, he will go and bet on basketball, win a big parlay, take all that money, and then blow it at like blackjack and roulette and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
he's a guy down on his luck, down to his last buck.
we'll see.
And he doesn't give a fuck.
See, I don't know if. See, I disagree with that. I think.
Go ahead.
I think that doesn't show that he's down on his luck, but I think it shows that he is used to fighting in the trenches. Not necessarily low, but for him to he uses his basketball knowledge, gets his little nest egg, and then goes and gambles it away. That shows two things very quickly about his character. One, basketball like not phenom in terms of playing, but intelligence-wise, knows basketball so well. Where it's lights out. He's gonna go hit that bet. Then it also shows his willingness to gamble. The rest of the movie is kind of a convergence of all that basketball knowledge and having more than everyone else, which means everyone else is going to say you don't have that much at that point. In combination with his willingness to gamble, that is what got him Michael Jackson, because he had to gamble.
Michael Jackson, even better.
Excuse me, but yeah, sorry. Getting Michael Jordan because he had to.
Just love shoes.
he had to gamble with way more risk than his basketball bets have. But it was still basketball. So it's high IQ, high risk, high reward. It was just that kind of built up this scenario of like, this is actually like kind of
He also
last ditch.
really bets everything on himself at the end. It's the boardroom scene that is everything. And he planned it and he thought of it. But it is still all on the line. I have to give the greatest speech anyone's ever given in a boardroom ever.
And he took
to
that,
land the biggest deal of all time.
and I love that they tied that in, just that little scene with his old scout or coach, whoever it was.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about the Martin Luther King speech, about how Martin Luther King had this whole speech written out.
Oh, it's Shawn Wayne's.
Yeah. He had this Martin
Maybe the other one. Who were the Wayans brothers?
One of the,
It was a Wayans
I
brother.
don't know. One of the
twins.
One of the Martin Luther King speech, he had this whole speech written out, but then he could tell
Marlon Wayans.
he could tell he was losing the audience, so he just audibled and did a new speech. And he was like, "Oh, I have the old speech of the one he was supposed to do." And that is exactly what Matt Damon did in the very end. Was he looked around, that shitty ad video was up, and he looks around the boardroom.
And he stopped it.
Yeah, and he looked around the boardroom and he says, "Cut the video." He audibled because he could tell he was losing the room.
And Affleck does great acting there.
Yeah, and he was mad about it, but then he realized what was happening. But then Matt Damon did this, and Matt Damon was Martin Luther King in that situation. And wild thing to say.
I need to see that movie. Matt Damon is Martin Luther King.
Right.
Double feature with The Last Samurai.
Fair. Well, that was Tom Cruise.
Who am I thinking of? Great Wall of China. Matt Damon was in.
Yeah. Regardless, he was Martin Luther King in that situation where he realized he was losing the ring.
It's my Matt Damon impression.
Listen. I have a dream, okay?
Keep going. Sorry.
No, I mean that was it. It's just the correlation between those two things. That was another thing they did very well. That writing, yes, but the acting of it, where Damon realized what was happening. You could see in his eyes he was like understanding what was happening, and then he made that flip that he just got from his mentor just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and also kudos to the writing and the directing and the setup, the structure of this film, in that it shows us that first, making it hard to believe the rest of it. And when I say believe, I mean we look at this person as a gambler, as fucking reckless, to tell you the truth. And slowly through the movie, Jordan's mom, Viola Davis, also clocks him as that.
Right.
So we
You wouldn't
the
be
whole
here if you
time,
weren't, she said.
we the whole time are trying to be like, is this a good guy or a bad guy? He's a good guy. He is genuine. But the movie itself makes it hard for us to see him as genuine. Now, the postscript of this movie where he is literally responsible for getting players paid. Like he was a big part of that movement of when it comes to product sales, how it should be structured, and did that for a long, long time and has been crucial to helping players get recognition. You know, I think, was he involved in the NCAA
Who?
thing? Of college basketball players
Vaccaro.
getting paid.
Tony
Vaccaro was.
Yes. He was
That's
like
who
the lead
he
witness.
really is.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. You know, that, you know, and it's hard for us. It's like, oh, it's this degenerate who actually does have the heart of gold. But Viola Davis has to clock both of those.
Right.
She knows at the first that he just showed up. Clearly, this guy's a bit of a basket case.
Right.
So I'm still going to take the time. But then through their relationship, and you see it in her performance, she's like, I am going to trust you.
Right.
It's weird to say, like, you could see her showcase with her body trust.
Right.
But she does that.
You hear it in her voice too. She's sharp and like kind of cold to start, but then throughout the movie it gets like softer, a little more velvety. She's like you know, like when she's talking to him on the phone in that last scene, she's like, it's like she's talking to her son.
Yeah, it's
she's
not.
Like, she's like, you're gonna get this, but this is the things you need to do to get it.
Yeah, it's not stern, but it is direct.
Yes. She's direct the whole movie, and I wouldn't have had that any other way because that's, you know, that's how she was. But and you can hear it, which is another great acting aspect, was to be able to maintain that level of direct forcefulness, that you know, unilateral mindset, but then also soften it up to the point where we can tell that she's trusting him more and that she's like, he's gonna get it and he's gonna get it. That's like dual acting to me. That's crazy.
And then the last, you know, performer that I really think needs a shout out is Chris Tucker. You don't see Chris Tucker much, but when you do, he's great.
Yeah.
He's great. Like, I haven't seen him since, like, Silver Linings Playbook, I feel like.
I forgot he was in that, too.
Yeah, and he was great in that. But in this one, he's great. He plays the agent, him and Damon, not agent, but, like, the sports liaison, you know, for the company of, like, I'm going to schmooze you. You know, he plays that so well and fun, and you trust him. He's the voice of reason in the beginning.
Yes.
Saying, do not do this, Matt Damon.
Right.
But is there for his buddy at the end, but is late.
Yeah.
And I love that he's late and doesn't even clock that he's late.
Right.
Just kind of comes in and it's like, oh, hey, how's everybody doing? Right. You know, works his way around the table, works the room, does what he's supposed to do. But just
overworks it a little bit.
I would agree. To the point where, like, I think Jordan's dad is kind of like, you know, ease up, brother.
Yeah. Well, I think they all, like, even Sonny or Jason Bateman and Matt Damon were both like, yo, like, sit down. Like,
yeah.
We're done here. Like, let's start.
Yeah, I mean, and that just brings up, that's right. Bateman puts together the video.
It's terrible.
It is
so
terrible.
bad.
And it's so, and I think you see, like, great directing. You just see Jordan, I think, does this.
Yeah.
I think his head moves a little bit, and that's what Damon clocks to stop it.
Dad looks at his watch. Viola's, like, adjusting herself, like, not paying attention. It's just like...
This movie shouldn't have worked, and it did so well.
I agree.
It shouldn't have worked. And I think it's the, you know, miracle that is Ben Affleck's direction and him leading any film. They're all wins. They're all wins. Even the ones that don't make money. Like he had one that came out after Argo that kind of bombed. But still a great movie. Like all of his stuff is great and it's serious and it's adult. And I just, God, and it was made cheap.
Yep.
God, I hope they make more of these kinds of movies. Adult dramas.
Right.
Just adult dramas that are about real things that are acted brilliantly, but aren't like, you know, giant explosions or nothing like that. We're chilling in an office.
Right.
For most of it. There's like a cool laboratory scene.
Right.
Other than that, we're in shitty locations, and I love it. It's beautiful. It takes a real master to make something like this.
I agree.
You should go see Air, because listen, you jerk, Air and everybody in it deserve your attention and respect, especially Ben Affleck.
Listen, you jerk, you need to watch Air solely because the history and the story behind it is fantastic, and it was done just as well, if not better, portraying the story. Go Michael Jordan, 23, baby.
And watch it alone. No girls. No girlfriends, no wives. Just watch it. It's a great dude movie. It's a great male presenting movie. There, I'll clean it up for.
It's a great sports fan movie.
Great sports fan movie. But this is a good one. Watch it alone and pay attention. Love that it was in theaters. I really enjoyed it on VOD. You should watch it too. So listen, you jerk. We gotta go.
MJ fade away.
Hey!